Hi, welcome to JAMS video. My name is Sydney and I'm the Scotland Youth Program Coordinator for UJIA. And today we are here with Rodney Ross, who is the Project Director, and Charlotte Clare, who's our Project Researcher for British Jews in the First World War. And they're going to be sharing with us a little bit about their amazing project. So can we begin by just telling us a little bit about the project?
Okay, so the object of the project mainly is to make sure that that the wider community, the British Jewish community and the wider community realise the contribution that the Jewish community made in the early 1900s. So whilst we concentrate on 1914 to 18, we're actually looking at from the 1900s to the 1920s. Why it's important? If we don't collect these stories now, we will never collect them again. Because similar to with Holocaust survivors, there are no survivors now from the First World War, and in fact, second generation are very few because they're in their 80s as well, 70s and 80s. So we go out and we have to collect stories and from communities of life at that time, whether it's photographs, artifacts, personal stories. If we don't get them now, they'll be lost forever, and that's probably the main area of the project.
So you're collecting all of this information on a website. It's not a physical exhibit. Correct. Where you go see, but it's on the website. So can you show us this website? You showed me before some of the personal records that people put in. So
as you can see from across the top, there's various sections of the website, one of which is, as you say, is personal records. The website holds nearly 2,000 personal records. These have been collected from communities, through community groups, through research projects, and they're records about individual people who lived at this time. Each one of them is a story of how people lived. And here we are. Here's someone that just come up. Let's click on any one you want, Charlotte. It doesn't matter which one. So, Maurice Joseph Aarons, he was born in 1896 and he died on the 21st of August 1918. So if we scroll down, this is the sort of information we collect. Information about the person, their family. So this person had father and mother, Lewis and Aarons, Janet, and he had two siblings, Perry and Isidore. He lived on 28 Sutherland Bow in London, and he died in Flanders. There's a family in Birmingham, and we found other families called Zimmerman. There we go. This is a family in Birmingham, 10 siblings, 4 boys, all between the ages of 18 and 30, all died in the war within 18 months of each other. Imagine getting telegrams one after the other.
Wow.
I think what it does is it also brings home the horror of war. This was a family of 10 who lost 4 within 18 months. And there's loads of other stories like that on here. Young men who were joining up at the age of 16. So I suppose when we're going into schools, we're talking about, I don't know what the years are in Scotland, but we're talking about years 10 and 11 in England. Mm-hmm. One of the youngest men to fight was a guy called Ralph Barnett, who was just 15. War isn't that wonderful thing that everybody thinks, aren't we wonderful to fight? Families lost brothers, sisters, fathers in the most horrendous circumstances. And yes, we were there too, but we should remember the sacrifice as well made by Jewish people for their country.
How do you think that the Jewish experience is different from the British experience, the general British experience during that time period?
In many ways it wasn't, because for the first part of the the first part of the war, 1914 to 1916, Charlotte, just jump in if I've not quite got this right, but it was a volunteer army, and the Jewish community felt in those days that they should join up. So they joined up in the same way that people from all over the British community joined up. Everybody that joined up were also very proud of their Jewishness and their Judaism. And the website records how Rabbonim helped them serve and helped them observe their Judaism at Pesach, at Shavuot, certainly at Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And this is a poster which we found. And as you can see, it's from a Jewish World, which was the precursor of the Jewish Chronicle. England has been all she could to Jews. Jews would be all they can to England. And then there must be no Jewish slackers, enlist now. But the interesting thing was, when we talked to people about this, this wasn't put out by the government of the day. This was put out by the Jewish Recruiting Committee, because they were determined that Jewish men, and in the main, would serve their country. So you could be a good Jew and a good Englishman. The other interesting bit is that always makes people think is, at the time, 100,000 Jews also fought for Germany, or the Austrian-Hungarian Empire at the time. 100,000 Jews. So there's this notion of Jews fighting Jews. And 100,000 fought, 18,000 won the Iron Cross. That's one of the main awards for bravery that an army, certainly from Germany, could do. And then in 1917, then we had the coming together of the Jewish battalions, and there's plenty of information on the website that shows how this happened and how they went and fought in Palestine. I think that might
Interesting. So you're sharing about the men and how the men were really standing up and fighting for their country. Mm-hmm. What about people who are at home, like the women, and also for teenagers? If you were a teenager living at that time, what might your life have looked like?
Well, women, certainly in those times, were still seen as people who lived at home, who brought up the families. However, middle-class Jewish women, quite a number of them, became nurses and served with the voluntary aid detachments. And we've got quite a list of nurses. Perhaps the most famous one is Florence Greenberg, who people will remember as a great cookery writer, and she's got one of the most famous Jewish cookbooks on the bookshelves, if you like. But before that, she was a nurse. Her name was Florence Oppenheimer, and she served 2 terms as a nurse, one in this country, just interrupt if I'm wrong, Charlotte, and one overseas in Suez, I think it was. And each time her father, very middle class Oppenheimer, said, come home, enough's enough, come home, find yourself a nice Jewish man, settle down, does unto 8, find a nice family. But she wanted to serve. And we have lots of other stories of nurses who served. She survived the war and went on to make a career as a journalist. And her husband was the editor of the Jewish Chronicle. Well, there are lots of stories of nurses who died in the war, and they were just heroic, but their names are not recorded. They died of the Spanish flu, they died of sepsis, they died of lots of things just by serving.
So I want to finish off with, what's the most important thing for young people today to take away from this history?
The title of our project is British Jews in the First World War, We Were There Too. And I think it's so important in this day and age when there is so much intolerance and so much racism and certainly a rise of anti-Semitism, that young people can stand proud and say, our fathers, grandfathers and great-grandfathers fought for this country and gave their lives, made the ultimate sacrifice. The other thing that we take away from certainly all the research that we have on the website is that the contributions that Jews made at that time as members of parliament, as doctors, as inventors, as people who committed their lives to the welfare of the wider community. It wasn't just the Jewish community. But I think the message to take away is never forget, carry on being proud of being Jewish. We were there too. We gave as much as anybody and probably a little bit more. And the stories on the website, and I urge people, if they get a few minutes, just to spend some time looking at it, and they will read it for themselves. Don't take it from me.
Wow. Thank you so much. It's been so informative, and I really appreciate speaking to you.
Thank you for having us.